our goal isn't to have you guys figure out everything you want to do with your life after tonight and be like, okay, that is exactly what I want to do. Tonight is just to share stories, to share different walks of life that people took on different journeys of different spheres of influence that they get to have. And just to realize that there's a lot more in this world than I think that we're even exposed to. A lot of our parents are like talking about one type of job, which is good, but it's so important to see what else is out there in different jobs and different careers. So we wanted to just kind of shine some light, I guess, on different careers that are out there. So we're going to start off right now with a couple of questions that we had prepared, and then we asked you guys questions. I didn't send these ones to you guys, so we're kind of winging the second half of this part. I talked to Vlad. He's like, I'm used to winging it, so we're good. The rest of y'all, I hope we're good too. Didn't clarify with the rest of you guys, but there's a few questions that some of the students actually sent in too. And so we're going to have you guys, that one's going to be more like open-ended. Whoever wants to answer can answer that one. You're not obligated to. But everyone's going to answer the first few. So first question, maybe we'll start with Ange, and then we'll kind of like make our way around. The first question is just introduce yourself, who you are, and what do you do, what did you maybe study for, and what are you currently doing with that?
Okay, so hi, I think most of you already know me. I'm one of your SALT coaches here. So my name's Angelina. I just graduated this past Wednesday with my master's degree. Thank you very much. So my master's degree in cell and molecular biology. So I am looking forward to being a scientist. So how I started off with this is my undergraduate degree was in biomedicine. I always knew that I wanted to go into the healthcare field or something similar to that. Initially, I was interested in med school, and so to make yourself a very competitive applicant for medical school, you have to have a whole bunch of stuff on your resume. And one of the things that I wanted to add on to that was being a researcher. So I was super blessed, and I got accepted into a research lab. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved research. I loved being a scientist. I loved trying to discover and find out new things. So after that, I graduated with my bachelor's, and then I decided to pursue my passion for research, and I got my master's degree. And throughout that entire time, I got to do a little bit of everything. I've been teaching at Sac State for a few years now, so that's been super fun and really cool. Yeah, I teach anatomy at Sac State for the past 3 years. Yeah, it's cool. No big deal. Yeah, and then I'm on the job market now, so I'm looking for research positions.
Research. Yeah. Can you just share, because I got to watch her, I don't know what they're called, senior symposiums or something like that?
My thesis defense, yeah, Diana came out to support me.
What did you use to research?
Okay, so do you guys know those super pesky little flies that you find where there's rotting fruit somewhere? They're called fruit flies, little guys. Okay, so yeah, I worked with the fruit flies, and so essentially it's pretty cool. I got to
research, guys.
Yeah, that's research. We work with flies. You can work with rats and other stuff, but I worked with flies.
Yeah, nice. All right. Awesome. Okay, go ahead, Edward.
So I actually took a class with Angie, so we know each other from before. My name's Edward, and so I just finished pharmacy school last May, and so I'm currently in my residency. So my first year residency, I'm in Sutter, Sacramento, and downtown. So that's a cool area within pharmacy. You normally think of it in terms of your neighborhood pharmacy, and people just dispensing medications, but there's a lot of different areas you can go into within pharmacy. One that I liked is working in a hospital, and so there's a lot of specialties you can even do within a hospital, and then every hospital needs a pharmacy too, and then pharmacists within that to work and dispense medications. And so my residency this year, the way it kind of looks like is I spend a year and I have different rotations, so 4 weeks in different practice settings that I get some experience in. And so if you guys have any questions on that, feel free to ask them. And before that, kind of my path to getting here is that I went to Sacramento State and I did biochemistry there. I actually didn't end up graduating, so I took the prerequisites.
So it's okay to drop out and become a doctor?
Yeah, pretty much. And so I ended up going to University of the Pacific in Stockton, and that's where I stayed for 3 years too.
Nice. All right. Go ahead, Vlad.
All right, my name is Vlad. I think I'm about to ruin this whole panel by saying that, first of all, I own a company called Premier Enterprise Inc. I have no formal education like they do. My parents did not support me with anything that I've done in my career. I've went against the grain and I've done opposite that anybody's ever done. But praise God, everything is good. I'm successful. Basically, we buy, build, and sell homes. We currently have about 130 homes under construction currently. We have a framing company also. And really, I can tell you that I had no idea what I was doing until recently. And
So Vlad's always been winging it.
yeah, so I've really been winging it. And I'm just complete opposite from you guys. You guys are like, you know exactly what you're doing and what you've done. I did not have that, but my career and everything that's happened, it just took off out of nowhere. So
That's so awesome.
zero, guys. Sorry, I don't have any wisdom or knowledge that's just on that formal education level.
Yeah.
So I relate to somebody here, so very good. But it's just that simple.
Yeah. No, I love. So it's awesome.
So my name is Paul. I'm a physical therapist, and I've gone, like, the way I got here was I went straight to a four-year university with zero study skills and crashed and burned my first chemistry class as a chemistry major, and that made me switch my major pretty quickly. But then I discovered physical therapy through a recommendation from a friend to just look into it, and then I went to physical therapy school. That's a doctorate level degree, and that's about it.
Are you currently doing physical therapy?
Yeah, so I've been working for about 9 months at Family Physical Therapy in Auburn, and then Roseville as well. We have a clinic.
That's so awesome. All right, Igor.
What's up, guys? My name's Igor. Currently working at Yelp as a product designer, and it kind of, I relate to Victor here, kind of just came up out of nowhere in a way. I was always interested in graphic design in that kind of field, and one opportunity sort of led to another. I actually started going to college for a designer degree or something in that area, and soon after that was able to get a position at an agency, at a local agency, and one opportunity kind of led to the next, and kind of brought me to Yelp. And as a product designer, the way it differs from a graphic designer is that what you're working on is actually a digital product, not necessarily branding or logos or business cards or anything print related, but you're actually working on products like apps or websites, tools and things like that. So that's that.
I did not know that there's a difference between graphic designer and
Yeah, people
Love
always
it.
conflate the two. Yeah,
So when I called you to do this, I thought it was upon the graphic design.
there's overlap. There's always
Not that
overlap
about
in
it, didn't know.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Awesome, Ruben.
Hi guys, my name is Reuven. I am an endodontist. I do root canals for a living. It's a field in dentistry where you can continue to choose to specialize afterwards. Endodontists diagnose tooth pain. They try to figure out why people have pain and whether or not a root canal would fix that problem. Sometimes we redo root canals if they're not properly done, or do minor surgeries if either a root canal or a retreatment is not successful. My journey there took me a little while. I first originally thought about, I enjoyed science, I enjoyed math, I enjoyed working with people, and I liked working with my hands. And first I was drawn into medicine, and all through I went to American River College and then Cosumnes River College, got my prereqs done, then transferred to UC Davis. And there I started to realize, well, let me just volunteer at a hospital and really see, is this something I want to do? And there was a program UC Davis offered where you would actually come in and shadow doctors and help out, set up rooms for surgeries, help out in the emergency room with nurses and transporting patients. And I realized that that high, intense, stressful environment was just not for me. Dealing with death and talking with families when surgeries don't go well, and just dealing with grief and sorrow on a daily basis was not something I could do. And also that stressful lifestyle and the crazy hours was not something I was looking forward to. So I started during my senior year in college. I was like, well, I mean, that really throws a wrench into my plans. Here I thought I was going to become a doctor, and now once I looked into it, it's not for me. And so I started to look around in the same medical field, dental field, and dentistry popped up. And so I volunteered at a community clinic, worked as a dental assistant, helped out as a dental assistant and front desk. I liked it. I really enjoyed that freedom, going home after work and not always being tied down and doing emergency or being available for emergencies, but being able to tune out work after your 8-hour shift. And so continued my education afterwards, went into dental school, and then afterwards residency is 2 to 3 more years on top of that. So graduated and have been working for a couple of years here in Folsom and Roseville. So definitely enjoy it. Long journey, but I'm happy for it. Yeah.
This is the first person I ever met that's a dentist. There's a DR before your name too, right? Super cash. Every time I'd order something from Amazon, if I had that opportunity, I'd be like, yeah, it's Dr. Diana. That's whatever. All right, go ahead, Yusuf.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yusuf. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for a little over a year now. I currently work at UC Davis in ICU. I graduated from Sac State in 2019.
What's an ICU nurse? That was
ICU
the easiest.
specifically, it's a specialized unit. It stands for intensive care. I almost forgot myself because I just say ICU. It's just so normal. But yeah, intensive care units where usually like the very sickest patients come to me, and we try to fix them.
Like sickest the coolest or the sickest cough? This is teenagers we're talking to. You gotta clarify.
Very critically ill patients.
There you go. Igor didn't say it in a mic, but he said the illest. All right, so this is kind of your guys' like where you're at. So you guys are familiar with where you're at. A common question that we have oftentimes from students is how did you decide that this is what you wanted to do? So some of you guys are talking about your journey, but did you have a moment where it kind of clicked, or did you have a moment of, like even for Victor, Vlad, you guys go through so many different things in your guys' business. How did you know like which route you guys wanted to take, or even with you had to quit school. How did you know, okay, I'm quitting Sac State and I'm going for this? Where did you have that confirmation, or where was that decision making? Or if some students might feel like, okay, well, I feel like I have multiple callings in my life. How did you come to that, like come to terms of choosing of like, but this is the route I'm taking? And since you guys have mics, maybe we can start from the back this time.
I'd go. Honestly, initially I never knew I wanted to be a nurse, especially like knowing that a nurse is like mainly females. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, it's not a manly job. So going into school, like college, I always like was into technology. So I went to computer science. Quickly realized it wasn't for me. It was all very like antisocial people, computer and you just gamer, and I was none of that. But I did enjoy coding. And I'm like, okay, I like people, I like to talk to people, what can I do? And a bunch of my Russian Slavic friends were all into nursing. I'm like curious, why, what is it? And there's actually a lot of factors what made me choose nursing, but one of it was also because I had a grandpa that ended up in the hospital, and none of us in our family know nothing about medicine. Like, none of us are in the medical field. And being in that unknown really kind of placed me in a vulnerability. And I didn't want to be in that place where I'm like, okay, what if the nurses are lying? What if the doctors are hiding something? There's just this always kind of like this feeling of like there might be hiding something from us. They might not be telling us the full truth. And I'm like, I want to be that person that knows what's going on, and also help my family members, and also provide for the patients. And through that, I'm like, okay, maybe I should change my major. And usually in college, when everyone goes to college, a lot of people will change their major. A lot of it. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm about to change my major from computer science to nursing. And I didn't want to be like going back and forth, choosing different paths. So I'm like, okay, if I want to do this, I got to be set. I got to make it happen. So I started volunteering, and I saw like, I started shadowing. I started seeing, okay, what do nurses do? What do doctors do? And coolest part about nursing is that like you're able to interact with patients, you're able to help them, and also there's a lot of like advancements in your career path. If you don't like, if you don't like the ER, for example, emergency department, you could go to a different unit. Or if you don't want to be in the bedside where you take care of patients directly, you could be an NP, go up. So seeing all those factors, I'm like, okay, this is a perfect place for me, like to help out patients, to get to know them, and also if I didn't like it, I could always switch it up to a different unit. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I think I partially answered that question in my first response in terms of how did I know, because I didn't know until 4th year of college. I always thought I was going to go into medicine, and then when I really had that hands-on experience, I realized it wasn't for me. I wish I had it earlier, but so I do ask that you guys, if you do consider some sort of field, actually go and visit those places. Go and shadow what those people do. Don't just see what they show you on TV and be like, all right, that's what doctors do. Yeah. That's the lifestyle right there. But so if you guys do end up changing your majors, that's fine. Just have a plan and stick to it, and continue to search. And it might change and it might not, but yeah, until I actually went in and saw dentistry and took part in it, I really didn't know it was for me. And in school too, specializing in endodontics, there's aspects of dentistry I don't like, and there's some aspects that I really enjoy, and that's how I continue to develop my desire and become an endodontist, because that's what drew my attention, that's what I was good at, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, for me, first of all, Vlad, sorry, I realized I called you Victor. I think we're all tripping up here. We're all tripping up here.
Where did Victor come from?
I know, yeah. What happened to that? But yeah, for me, I think like I've always kind of had an interest in the creative field, and going to like middle school and high school, I always kind of saw the creative field as one of those like impractical career fields. Just because, I mean, like art and whatnot, it was always a passion of mine, but I never saw it as something that, would bring the bucks home. But yeah, I kind of, with time, I was, experimenting with different things. I always had an interest in like design and things like that. And in high school, I kind of started messing around with like branding and illustrating, things like that. One thing led to another, but I think for me, like when it clicked was like just branding. That's kind of where it started for me, logos, and that's kind of what initially drew me into the design field. And that's something that I was always interested in, and I started kind of like doing little projects here and there on the side for like friends and family, and
1825
in church. No, honestly, like church was probably like played a really big factor in like, getting me into that field, and just like giving me a practical like application for that. So that was a big part. And after I kind of had some, experience in like branding, and I kind of was doing like business cards for people and whatever, like little things like that, I decided to kind of start applying into like different agency positions, very, very small agencies. I was just like applying for places here and there, and I ended up getting accepted into an agency in New York. It was like a remote position, and it was part-time. It was very small, like nothing super fancy, but that was kind of my initial like step into that field. And then from there, there was a local agency that opened up here. I got a job here, and this is kind of where, I started working here, and this is where I was introduced to product design. And this is kind of like not really something that I was planning. I didn't kind of, this is not something that I had like my eyes set on as far as, app design or website or whatever. It almost kind of like fell into my lap, which was a God-given, because, if not for that, I don't know where my career would be right now. But yeah, so I think the opportunities, God just presented them. God just gave me what I needed in those times. So I think the original question was, how did I decide to? I think God decided. But yeah, it kind of just spun out in its own way.
So I knew I wanted to do medicine when I was in high school, and I was part of a Health Careers Academy. But I didn't know physical therapy until probably my second or third year. I was also on the med school route, and realized it wasn't for me, kind of a little bit with the hours, and just, I guess I was thinking if I was gonna do go into medicine, I would want to specialize in something. And so I started volunteering at different physical therapy clinics and hospital, different settings, and that's honestly, I think, as pretty much everyone mentioned, that's the best way to realize if it's for you or not. Because you can ask somebody about it, you can read a blog, but until you actually spend hours, days in the profession, you'll see both the good and bad of it. And so as the more I volunteered, the more I realized there's something I can see myself doing every day and enjoying. And so I volunteered, and then after I graduated college, I worked at Sutter and Fairfield, so I commuted 5 days a week from Antelope, but it was worth it. I'd go every day and look forward to it, seeing the different patients, seeing the actual progress day to day. Essentially, as physical therapists, we work with people who are dealing with pain and movement issues. So you can have be in a hospital, be in an ICU, be working with people who have strokes or neurological conditions, heart issues, and essentially getting people moving. And yeah, even during PT school, I started following other clinicians that have been practicing for a few years, and I would be learning some things in school, but I feel just as much, if not more, I learned from other clinicians, just more up-to-date evidence on like best practice and just like finding ways to help people move better.
Awesome. Glad, not Victor.
Okay. So, at 16 years old, I was faking homeschool and going to work, making about $5 an hour in construction. And
Did you say 5?
$5 an hour. That was the rate back when I had dark hair and not, gray hair and stuff.
Which one is it? Yeah, I feel bad.
Basically, and the reason I did that was I come from a very poor family, and so I was kind of helping support the family. And really, it was just a bad situation. I was basically working to support my parents, support myself. And, that's really what got me into construction. And I wouldn't say that it was like this good, happy time, and that's what I wanted to do. It was something that I had to do. And what happened is you just continue working, you can, help support the family, and one thing led to another, and I just thought to myself, well, I'm doing this construction, I'm in real estate, I like it. I like real estate, I like building, I like housing, I like that stuff. Let me get as much information as I can on it. And so as I was doing this, I just tried to soak up as much information as I could. And, it started from, just trying to learn all the trades, how stuff works, how stuff gets done, how stuff gets built. Then it just grew into got my real estate license, did training and got real estate license. Then I realized, let's build something. So I started building homes, got my general contractor's license. And then I said I didn't get formal education, but I got other education. I went to an academy, I went to different trainings. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, guys, if somebody tells you that don't get any education, I mean, that's just baloney. I mean, education and knowledge is what gets you from here to here. It's very important. But I was just hungry for the info. And that information really is what opened the doors and the opportunities for me. And, I went from one opportunity to the next and to bigger, better, and it wasn't something where, I actually really just wanted to understand it. I wanted to understand how is it that there's people that own all these homes and buildings and apartments and skyscrapers, and then there's people that don't, and they just rent a house their whole life, and for me, I come from a very poor family, so I've wanted to have something for once in my life. I lived in an apartment my whole life with my parents. I'm one of 9 kids. It was tough growing up. And, because of that, the opportunities kind of just drove me, and I just tried to do everything the best I could. And I didn't necessarily do things to get wealthy. I did things because the opportunity was there to learn something new, to get better, do something better. And that just grew into something huge to where, our company's pretty big, to where I look back and I just can't believe how it happened. It's like a snowball effect where it just starts so small, and then you're rolling that snowball, becomes this big old thing, big old snowman you can build, it just rolls and gets bigger. And that's what happened. We didn't have this business plan or this big idea. We just tried to do everything as best as we could. And that's really what did it. There was no, it was just a joy and a happiness to be in an industry, but there wasn't like, okay, if I'm in real estate, I want to be a real estate agent, or if I'm I'm just going to build it. No, we just took the whole industry as housing, and I just let it go in my life and say, God, whichever way it goes, I'll just do everything, any opportunity, the best that I can. And that just really what made the career happen.
I love that. Would you mind sharing actually how long it took you to get to this point? How many years?
I bought my first home. I bought my first home when I was 19 years old in the ghetto, like across the street from Denio's. We had quinceañeras every night in the neighborhood. It was like, but I did it, and because I was getting married and I couldn't afford an apartment. Okay. So the house was so cheap, it was like $500 a month, right? An apartment was like $800. So we had no AC, we had no garage, we had nothing, like it was like garbage, okay? We moved in there, humbled ourselves, moved in there, bought the place. Over a span of 3 years, we fixed it up, and we ended up selling it for almost double 3 years later. And that gave us all the money that we needed to start our business. And it took us probably 3 or 4 years just flipping homes and trying to make money, and we were in a rental for a while until we got enough money to just buy our own place. But really, we built our first I guess you can say it was a 4-home community in 2012. And through all this time from 2012, I would say till about 2017-ish, it was really hard. Like, I'm the type of person, like, we paid everybody very well. We didn't skimp out, we didn't cheat people, and when you're running the business straight, it's really hard to survive. Like, it was really, really tough until we basically gained a reputation. And it took probably a good 5 years of just making salary, really just standard funds, to just get a reputation, get the right people in our business, investors, and just build a community around our business of people. And from probably 2017 till now is where it just skyrocketed. So if you look at from when I was 16 to now, I mean, we're talking 15 years of just trying to make it happen. And I would say probably the last 4 years where it just skyrocketed after that.
Wow.
Long time, a lot of failures.
Yeah.
At youth I spoke, and I mean, guys, people were shocked that after losing and staying with it, persevering, it finally broke through. So.
Yeah, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that.
All right, yeah. Listening to that makes me very fortunate for like where I came from and the opportunities I had. So my background is my mom is actually a pharmacist too. So growing up, I always like knew that was an option, that like residency was on the table too. But I always told myself, I was like, I don't want to do pharmacy like just because she's in pharmacy. So going into Sac State, I like was open to it. Was also considering like medicine. And other healthcare, just because like I kind of like the application of science, being able to help people and work with people in healthcare. So I ended up like shadowing some doctors and volunteering in like an outpatient and in an inpatient pharmacy too. And so what Raveen was saying about like actually seeing what people do like is I think really important, because you don't really know what people do like day to day at the end jobs when you're going to school. So it's really important to like know that before you actually get into like a certain area or a certain field. So I ended up seeing that I liked what I saw in pharmacy, and with medicine, kind of like what people were saying before, was just like the work-life balance is really difficult, and it can be very stressful too. And like the one story I can that reminds me of like why I didn't end up going into it was an oncologist I was shadowing, who was like going through a divorce, and he was telling me how he had to like Uber his son home from school because he like didn't have anybody to pick him up. And I was just like, wow, like that's like a really tough spot to be in because he's like working so much. Like that being said though, like not all of medicine is the same too, because a lot of it depends on like where you're at in your certain circumstances. So I think he kind of like brought that upon himself because he was working so much. But like still, I was like, I don't think that's for me. So I ended up, when I was in Sac State, I had my prerequisites done. So I just ended up applying to pharmacy school. I got in, like into like my second or third year, and so I spent a total of 3 years at Sac State, and then afterwards went to pharmacy school, and then spent 3 years at pharmacy school. And that was like a year-round program, and usually it's 4 years, so 3 to 4 years for pharmacy school. And yeah.
Wow, awesome. So people who have other people in their families, you can go for what your parents are going for too.
Just make sure you want to do it.
Yeah.
Just like actually see what they do.
Yeah, yeah. Right, Ange?
Yeah, I had a similar situation. So my mom's a nurse, or she was back in Russia, and so she always pushed me towards the medical field. And so in high school, I took an ROP class for medical assisting, and that was kind of like my first point of entry into the medical field. I really enjoyed it, and so when I got back into college, that's what I thought I was going to do. But I think I briefly touched on this earlier, so I'm not going to go into that. But one of the biggest things that I would recommend is just take advantage of every single opportunity that's given to you, like whether that be when you're in high school and that's, applying for internships, or like a lot of these people up here were saying is go shadow someone, talk to people. That's how you know whether or not you'd actually be interested in it. And yeah.
Awesome. Okay, with this question, it's like just like a 1 point. What is one thing you wish you would have known before getting into this career?
It can be stressful at times. You'll see, at least in the medical field, I didn't expect to see so much. I mean, not so much, but for me, I was thinking, like, okay, everyone's going to get healed, everyone's going to get well, but totally didn't really see that there's also a downside, that life goes on, people pass, and that's part of life.
That must be hard to even like adjust to. I think at such a young age where you're like, What do you mean not everybody makes it out of the hospital alive? That's hard. Or anybody
I can
really,
go.
whoever has
Being a researcher and being a scientist, it can get extremely frustrating because things don't work the way you want them to, especially when you're running experiments. And the biggest takeaway from that is that failure is okay. Even if your experiments fail, you still learn something, right? And so you can readjust and then make it better the next time around. So and even when you're going through school, like I remember, I think it was my first year of college too, 0 study skills, so I did fail a chemistry course, and I was like, oh man, like I can't believe I failed, like I can't like go anywhere else after that, and that's okay. Like if you fail a class, it's fine as long as you get back up and you know what your goals are, you know what you want to do, and you keep pushing forward. And so be okay with failure is probably the biggest thing that I would have liked to know going into this.
Cool.
Yeah, for me, I guess the question was one thing you wish you knew before you got into this field. How long did it take before you actually see the benefit or reap the benefit of the time that you put in? Honestly, I feel like I kind of gave up on my 20s because it took 10 years, and a lot of my friends were out having fun, enjoying time, and here I am studying, preparing for a test, and I'm like, man, okay, as soon as I'll get done, I'll do what they'll be doing, I'll have fun, I'll enjoy life. And yet, even when you finish school, there's still a period of time, like Lad was saying, where you gain experience, you gain reputation, and that also takes time, and you don't see the fruits of your labor until, it might be 15 years until after, you're 18. And so just, be in it for the journey. It'll pay off in the very end, and just sticking it out, that was important. Yeah.
All right. Whoever has one. Edward.
Yeah, I guess biggest thing I have to say, just like in general though, career-wise, is just the importance of building habits, like early. So like that can mean like study habits, but just like other things in general. Because like honestly, what I've seen like going like in my life and like with everybody around me is that it's not like the smartest people that are the most successful. It's just the people that like have like the discipline or like the habits to like continue working, continue doing something. And that will be like in any field that you can see too. So that's like, I think especially important to build when you're young. And so just kind of like making sure if you have a time to do work, you set aside that time to do work and the time to hang out. You do have that time to hang out too. But like just building those good habits, is pretty important.
Awesome. Igor?
I think for me, a big thing that I came to realize, and a lot of the reason that I missed out, I feel like I missed a lot of like opportunities, learning opportunities, is just the aspect of community and building relationships and networking and talking to people, asking for help. Just understanding that you don't know it all. You're not going to figure it out by yourself, and you're not an inconvenience to other people to just ask for help and just ask for a mentor. Hey, can you help me figure this out? Can you help me figure out where to go? A reason when I was working at the agency that I was at for around like 5 years, I feel like at that time I kind of in a way isolated myself from really just like learning, kind of reaching out to other people outside of where I worked, to just get an idea of what the world looks like outside of this bubble, because I was working in a very small agency. It was about like, at most it was maybe like 12 people. And it was a very like small community, and the kind of work that we were doing was very, it was nowhere near the level of like the corporate work that I'm, like the atmosphere that I'm surrounded in right now. So it was very different. And during that time, it was kind of, I isolated myself in this environment, and it really kind of created this like stagnation in my career progress. And for some time, like by the end of that, I came to a place where I'm like, I kind of don't know where my career is going. Like I feel like I'm stuck. I don't feel like I'm really learning anymore, and I'm not really getting, nothing's really pushing me. So I kind of reached this point of like stagnation, and God worked. I'll just like mention a little testimony, but there was one client that we worked with at that agency for like a couple months, and I worked with him directly. We had a good working relationship. Everything was going well with the project. We finished it up, and we parted ways, and I didn't hear from this guy for about 3 years. Until one day he emailed me, and he's like, "Hey, I'm currently head of design at Yelp, and I'm wondering if you know anyone that's interested in a position." And I'm just like, at that time I was like, I left a job. I was just freelancing and wanted to kind of figure things out on my own a little bit, just to get a bit of a different experience. And I said, "Hey, I'm open to contract with Yelp if you're down for that." And so I kind of helped them out with some stuff. Was working with them for about 6 months, and after that they offered me a full-time position, and I kind of skipped over the interview process. And that to me was just a huge blessing, because the interview process at these kind of companies is very rigorous. You'll have you'll have 3 or 4 different levels, and by the end of it you're doing 6 hours of interviewing one person after another, and just doing challenges and whatever, whiteboard challenges. It's very intensive, and there was a lot of things that, because of the position that I was in before, because of the agency that I came from, I wasn't at that level of knowledge. And so I know that had I actually went through the official interview process, I would have probably not gotten the job. But God kind of knew where I was lacking, knew what I needed, and just gave me just led me through the back door into this place, and it's just been the biggest blessing for me. I was really just able to learn what I needed to learn, and God just gave me the people that I needed, the people that had patience with me to kind of allow me to catch up, and it was just it really turned things around for me. So sorry that took a minute.
It's okay, you threw a testimony in there.
Yeah. God moment.
Good, God moment. There we go. All
But
right.
so praise God.
Awesome. Rebecca.
Okay, I'll go. I think for me, one thing I wish I knew going into it is just how important communication skills would be. With physical therapy, we learn a lot of techniques, different interventions, and all of that you have to know. You have to know the hard skills. But I feel to be successful, it's a lot more your interpersonal skills, how you interact with people, especially if you have a job that requires interacting with people. And so part of it, I kind of learned later, but I wish I started earlier, just reading a lot more books. Just looking at people who already have been successful, and kind of not having to do some of the trial and error on your own, even though that part's inevitable. But I guess, for example, even this past week, I had a couple of patients that were kind of deemed difficult, or one of the chart notes said that they were, demanding, or hard to communicate with, and I just took the time to listen. And I at the end, there were it was just a completely different person that came in, scared, because they've been dealing with a lot of pain for so many years. But just taking the time to listen, I feel that's part of therapy, or I guess, and that's a skill that you can incorporate in other parts, no matter whether you choose a career in healthcare or in business, or anything else. Just working with people, having that communication aspect.
Yeah. Awesome. So picking up communication skills now rather than in the middle of your job. Awesome. All right.
I would say 2 things that I think really changed my perspective on things, and I wish I knew sooner, because I think that it would give me a shortcut of about 10 years.
Everybody take a note?
Yeah, take notes here. So the first thing is 100% dedication to to God and acceptance. Like, you know, there's like a time in your life where you feel like you're just like you have control and you want things done your way, and it's like, you know what's best, this is what I want. You know, in my life, what I had to do is I had to say, God, how about I'm going to be a Christian, I'm going to open the Bible, I'm going to have integrity, I'm going to have honesty, I'm just going to be the way that I am, I'm going to try to do my part by just being a good Christian. Not just like, oh, business is business, you know, you're kind of shady here, kind of doing a deal there. Like, no, like, I'm a Christian. That's number one. And then God, from your side, do what you want to do. But I want to do that part. And over, like, I would say in a span of a year after I did that, I started understanding that every relationship that I have, every communication with every single person, like, there's my side that I have to do, and then there's God's side. And it made life so much easier. It wasn't like me trying to sell a product or like trying to force some kind of project to happen, or like, it was just like, God, look, this is what I am, this is who I am. I'll do my best, I promise. I won't be lazy. I won't be, I'll just do everything as best to my abilities. So that would be probably number one. Number two is understanding that life and work is about problem and solution. So all these people here, there's a need for them, right? There's a problem, whether it's pain in the mouth, pain in the body, there's, every single one of us, right? We are all attempting to have or create a solution to the problem, okay? So it doesn't matter if you're, let's say you work in McDonald's and you're on the cash register, right? Why did they hire you? What's the problem? The problem is they need a person there to be the face of their company when the customer comes in, right? To take the order, to understand what the problem is. And what is the problem? I'm hungry. So give me number one with this and this, right? And your problem is to be a solution by saying, okay, this is what they want, this is how much it's going to cost, put a smile on your face, make the company look good, take their money, and they're not hungry anymore. Done. Solution. So when you are the solution to the company, you become irreplaceable. There's no getting fired, because what do they want? They want you to be on time. They want you to, do your job. And in my company, I have people that are a really good solution. Like, I have people that are making 6 figures, and they're just with a nail gun. Why? Because they're really good at the solution that I need. And the solution is for this house to start here and become, here. And they're pushing, and I will give them raises over and over. Why? Because if they leave, I have a very big problem. And so for me, in my business, when a customer comes and says, look, I need a house, right? For me, it's what you were saying about listening and understanding is I have to understand, okay, what do you want? What are you looking for? Well, here, my budget's this. I need this kind of house. I need this. Then I could now create a solution for that person. And, before we would let's say we would do framing and a customer would come and we're trying to give them the best price and, just hire us to do the work. And, we're like begging for the work. It's gotten to the point where we're probably the most expensive framing company in Sacramento, and we just have so much work. We don't know what to, we don't have enough employees. Why? Because we understand their issue. We create a solution. So we're like, okay, we're expensive. How can we help these people to get the cost down? Well, let's try to find out. Maybe we can find cheaper lumber somewhere. Well, if you hire us and we can get you cheaper lumber, then we're not as expensive. Oh, wait, if you hire us, we'll give you a 10-year warranty, so now you can be confident in our construction. And you just keep on understanding more and more what the problem is, and you create a solution, and it becomes good for everybody. So a lot of mentality, like the millennial mentality and kind of the generation like you guys are in, it's kind of like, I want to go get a job where I sit around and make the biggest paycheck from everybody, right? I mean, that's kind of like what my friends always wanted to do, right? It's like, where can I just chill and get a paycheck and then go after work and do whatever I think is fun? But the mentality needs to change, and it needs to be like, hey, how can I do what I've been hired to do the best of my abilities so that way I can get that paycheck, that way I can grow that career, that way I can be the person that's irreplaceable and valued where I work. So I think if I understood that 10 years ago, I could have like really just make myself irreplaceable. But what happened is, I was always the cheapest guy. I always did the stuff that like nobody wanted to do just because I was just doing stuff just to do it. And I wasn't able to grow my business and my career at the speed that it should have grown.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. Is that everybody? Cool. Okay, our last and final question to end on a softer note, because we all said the negatives of like what I wish I knew how X number of years. Can you guys share one biggest highlight of what you do, and like what makes you love it so much? What's the big highlight of it? Whoever has a mic, I guess you can share. Who has a mic? Okay, there we go.
I'll go. Ultimately, kind of like going off of like problem solution, like I help people get their life back. A lot of like pain, oftentimes, like I feel like takes us out of control, or usually by the time people see me, like they've kind of endured it to how much they could. They tried pills, they tried surgery, they tried different injections, other professions, and ultimately it's, I think, biggest highlight is I get to work with people and I get to be part of like the process of seeing them get their life back and just be empowered. I think that's a big thing I try to like focus on, that God created us fearfully and wonderfully, and like thank God for modern medicine, and like there's a time and place for like surgery or pills or different interventions, but like I think one of the most amazing things is that God created in us an internal healing mechanism, that like you scratch yourself and you're not really doing much about it and it heals. And the same thing happens even on a bigger scale. You see people that like doctors said they'll never walk again, or I learned like in medicine, I guess, don't count people out, because even they say, oh, you should never run because your knees hurt, or you should never do this. Like, I almost never say that, because like ultimately it's, your body's resilient and it's very adaptable and just a miracle of God.
That's awesome.
What was the next thing? I thought we were going to go that way. Okay, now I got to think. No, I mean, for me, definitely not as deep as that, because you're working with it's just his voice. He's saying, yes, you have a much deeper voice, and therefore everything you say just sounds a lot more spiritual. But yeah, I think for myself, it's really cool, just like being in the field that I'm in. You're working on solving problems, and this comes like it's very practical. I'm sure here like a lot of people use Yelp, and a lot of people use services like similar to Yelp, and it's just cool to be able to work on a platform like that and know that you're kind of contributing to this like larger kind of solution to like a problem that so many of us have. It's like, where should I go eat, or like, is this restaurant any good?
Good problem.
Things like that. Say again.
So what a good problem to have.
I know, right?
What restaurant do we eat at?
So yeah, it's cool just like, solving problems. And that's kind of how my brain has always been wired, is like, if I have an issue with something, is like, can I create a tool to solve it? Can I do something to make this easier? Can I do something to make this more efficient? And I think I really enjoy that like technical aspect of my job. And also the fact that I don't do any development, it's all like visual stuff. Not all visual, there's a lot of like research and testing and involved in that, but yeah, just like working with the people that I'm working with, and just solving problems together. It doesn't really go any deeper than that.
I'd say one thing I really enjoy about my job is being able to restore function to people. Oftentimes I get people that come in and they're in a ton of pain. They haven't slept all night because their tooth is just throbbing, or they're swollen and their face is starting to look like a balloon because the infection's draining, and oftentimes pills are not helping. They're crying in the chair and they don't know what else to do. And just being able to help relieve that and to offer them function again and get them back to their daily lives. I appreciate God giving me that opportunity to at least, in that sense, help. And that brings a smile to my face every time we can help someone like that.
That's awesome. Once you fix their tooth, they can go choose where to eat. We're all interconnected somehow.
Highlight for me would be, I think my motto is love God and love people. And as a nurse, it can be a broken place. You see a lot of sadness, sickness, pain, and having that Holy Spirit within you, having that joy and the peace, and being able to reach out to those patients during their vulnerable state is amazing. Hearing their story, praying for them, spreading the gospel, spreading the joy, and seeing them get better is like the ultimate highlight of my job.
Awesome.
Okay, I think one of the biggest highlights of what I've been doing, so with teaching, is just being able to share knowledge, and then with research is being able to create new knowledge. So, and all of that is to the glory of God. It's not the flies, no. They're part of it.
That is the flies.
Yeah, and for me, kind of similarly to before, but I'd say it'd be like making changes or recommendations and then being able to see like the effects of that. So like maybe changing some like insulin regimens and seeing like blood sugars improve, or like pain control too. So it's just kind of like a very practical thing that you can see, and then like being able to work with others to kind of like achieve that end goal.
I like to see people like, today I stopped by a neighborhood that I built 8 years ago, and like a friend of mine lives in that neighborhood, and like the lady came out, she was like one of my first homes I sold in the neighborhood, and she saw me first time in 8 years, and she's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long. We love our house, we love the place we live. Like, and you realize that you're building homes for generations, for people like that are going to live there for, their kids, their grandkids. We were just the other day purchasing a house, and the lady's crying, and I just never really realized, like, man, why is she crying? And it turns out she bought the house brand new, and her kids were there, grandkids, all the weddings were in the backyard, and it's like, they were retiring, and they were going to a retirement home and stuff, and you realize that the stuff you're doing and the stuff, like for me, that I'm building, folks are going to have the birthday parties there, they're going to make memories there, and you can either build a really nice place for them to be and enjoy life, or, the other side of it. So I just really like that part. I really like that I just see people, and if they're happy, it just makes me happy, really.
That's so good. Wow. One thing I love that I haven't heard any of you guys say in a good way is that your job or your career is the thing that gives you purpose in your life. At the end of the day, a job is a job. We make choices of what career field we're going to go into. If you have a desire for medicine and then you end up in the medical field, or you build homes and you bring people to birthday parties in their backyards and weddings, at the end of the day, None of these careers are going to give them their purpose in life. None of these careers are going to bring them the true joy. Finishing your master's, that's an incredible accomplishment. But eventually it's going to just become another accomplishment that you created. Eventually, if you don't know Christ and what true joy is, eventually it's just another home that he built. It's just another framing work that he did, or it's just another insulin bottle that he gave away, or another patient that he cared for. But I think the incredible thing behind all of this is that you can choose just about any route. And God can use you in every single one of these spheres. All of them are in such different places. Some are product designing, so you're working with computers, physical therapy, you're working with bodies, homes, dentistry, nursing. You're in all these different fields, and God is using you there. And a lot of times I think we confuse our life to be bottled up in just our work, and then we're in ministry. But in reality, our calling could be in our career. You could be helping that person in physical therapy, and you're speaking life into them. You're helping them. You're building a home for somebody, and you're sharing the gospel doing that. And I think that so often we're like waiting for a sign from God, and none of them shared, which I love. I'm so glad you didn't. None of you guys shared of like, I prayed, and then God opened the heavens and was like, physical therapy. Because it doesn't work that way. That's how real life is. Some had to start at 16, hustling, day and night, working to help pay the bills. And that's just the reality of life. But so often I think we're waiting for this like career calling to like show up out of nowhere of like, God's gonna tell me my calling. No, instead he opened doors of opportunities for a lot of these guys. And from there, they made choices, and from there, you get to find, different things that you're good at, or educating yourself in different spheres, and realizing that you can educate yourself in one thing and then start into a whole nother thing. I finished my bachelor's degree in speech therapy. I'm not a speech therapist right now. God had a whole different plan for me. But I know that I was supposed to be studying speech therapy at the time. I had that confidence. I was like, God, I know that you want me here. And I was sure that I was going to go get my master's in it. And I didn't. Instead, God had a totally different plan my senior year of my undergraduate degree, and he completely shifted it. And so if you guys are wondering if where you're like, okay, well, they made all these decisions. They figured it out, and they have it figured out in life. And the reality is God can still steer one of their directions. God can still totally flip it upside down, and he can flip it upside down still to the rest of his life. And so if you're worried where you're like, what if I'm going to make the wrong decision? You're not bigger than God that you can steer his direction. He will direct you where he wants you to go. He will put you on that path. You still have that choice that you make of being sensitive to the Holy Spirit, of being sensitive, of asking him, like Vlad was saying, kind of like praying from the beginning of asking God to partner with you on this journey of figuring it out. And you're going to kind of be figuring it out for the rest of your life. I might still go get my master's, who knows? And I might never end up there. And I might end up in ministry for the rest of my life. And if that's the walk that God has me on, so be it. Right now, Ange is in research. Who knows? Maybe she'll go back and go to med school. And God might put that desire on her heart, You never know. God can shift. And that's okay. And you can start school, fail chemistry, and end up as a physical therapist. You can still do that. So I think the moral of today is that all these doors of opportunity are open to a lot of us. We have these choices that we get to make. We get to go get an education. We get to go and study whatever it is. Maybe it's an academy. Maybe you want to go firefighting. Go and study whatever you can to build up to that so that when you get there, you can be the best at what you do. So you can give your whole heart to it. The way that Vlad was saying that, of like being that best worker that you can be wherever you are. So just kind of giving it your whole heart. So moral of the story is you're always going to be figuring it out. And it's okay if you don't figure it out in your first year of college. A lot of you guys are graduating, and it's okay if you don't figure it out. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Can we give it up for all of our guests today? Thank you, guys.